Turn your radio off. Go watch TV or something. Listen to somebody else's radio program. Because this morning we're going off into a complete different world. When I worked in Las Vegas, and for a number of years I did the program in Las Vegas, from the Union Plaza Hotel, it was called at that time. And one night when I was doing a show, this very night, as a matter of fact, a lady called up and claimed to be a witch. She gave me some very, very disconcerting information, personal knowledge, which I actually bleeped off the air. It was so personal, I couldn't believe that she could possibly know these things about me. And toward the end of the call, she said she was going to come and leave something for me. Well, she left me a Ouija board, an ancient Ouija board. I have never, nor will I to this day, tell you what has happened to that Ouija board. But when you call upon spirits, when you call upon the dark side, and you do it with something, an instrument, it does not matter, you'd better be damn careful what you're doing. Ouija boards are an opening. They're an opening into a world where there are things that you may not really wish to meet. So my advice to you, without telling you the detailed story of this board, which is frightening, my advice to you is do not play with Ouija boards. It's like opening a door, and you just don't know what's going to walk through. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Art.
Yes.
Hello, how you doing?
Okay, you're going to have to get into that phone and yell at us.
Alright, how's this?
Much better.
Alright, thanks.
Where are you?
I'm in Spokane.
Spokane, Washington. KPA.
Mighty KPA.
You bet.
I have a story for you.
Alright, go ahead.
It's a doozy. About a year ago, I was staying at a friend's house up in Newport.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were sitting down in the basement, right?
Yes.
And we were sitting there smoking cigarettes and talking back and forth.
Doing guy stuff.
Yeah. And I was sitting there and I was watching my smoke from my cigarette go up, and all of a sudden I seen a face kind of appear into it, you know, the smoke going up into the air.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my friend, you know, do you see it? And he's like, yeah. And it smiled kind of, and then...
It smiled?
Yeah, it just smiled. And
now, I could understand people blow smoke rings.
Yeah.
I could even understand blowing a face, but I can't understand it smiling.
Yeah, it just kind of formed into a face. It was the strangest thing I've ever... I still get shivers now.
And it smiled at you?
Yes.
Well, it's better than a frown.
Yeah.
And what happened to it then? Did it...
It just kind of dissipated really slowly.
That's weird.
He's told me about stories about seeing things in his house before, too. So.
Well, I'll tell you then a little story. I have a photograph. Thank you very much for the call. I have a photograph of a ghost. A real ghost. It might be a wonderful night for some of you to get this photograph. If you have a computer and a modem, we've got a bulletin board service, and you can go in and get a photograph of this ghost. Actually, there are several ghost photographs. Oh, by the way, my guest this last Sunday on Dreamland sent me a photograph of a tornadic ghost. I don't know if that's a word, but it is obviously some sort of plasma material at the top of a staircase in the shape of a tornado. Now, down toward the bottom of the tornado, it's translucent. In other words, you can begin to look through it and see the stairs. It's the damnedest thing you've ever seen. I'm going to get that one up on the bulletin board for you as soon as they send it to me to scan. I've got a scan of it right now. but I want to be able to scan it myself at a higher resolution rate. If you want to see a ghost, there is a man in Arizona who was a stone mason. He built stone, he did basements. And he did a wine cellar for a fellow in about 100-year-old house. He was very proud of the work that he did, and when he was done, he took a photograph of his stone masonry work. It was beautiful. Only thing is, when the picture came out, quite clearly a translucent being appeared in the photograph, and it was captured very, very well on film. And we have published this photograph in our newsletter. And I might add, I've got it on our bulletin board, so if you want to download the picture of the ghost, you can call area code 702-727-1709 24 hours a day. Let me give that number to you again, 702-727-1709. And if you're able to download with Z-Modem protocol, you can download a photograph of this ghost. You take a look. There's a face, there's a body, there's arms, there's legs. It's a ghost. It's clear. It's in color. There's no mistake about it. There's some sort of spirit, some sort of entity in that photograph, and you're welcome to download it and take a look for yourself. We do a lot of that. We try to make some of this material available to you, so it does not all have to be the theater of the mind. That's what radio is. I want you to be able to see what I see so that you can see that I'm not totally crazy. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. This is Aaron calling from Los Banos, California.
Hi.
Hi. I have a really good ghost story I wanted to tell you.
Let her go.
Okay. This story happened in 1951. It was given to me by my father, and it happened to his cousin named Norbert. And he was at a movie theater and in Morgan Hill, California, and he was leaving, going towards San Jose. And there's a stretch of road they call Monterey Highway that they called the Blood Alley. And one night after the movie was done, he was heading home to San Jose, heading north.
Sure.
And he was going about 45 miles an hour in his old car.
I know the road, by the way.
Yeah. And there's a little highway, and while he was going up there, he saw this, beautiful young-looking lady on the side of the road and walking really slowly. And he kind of slowed down, and he was looking over at her, and she had a beautiful white dress on, and she was looking down, and he slowly passed her, and he looked in his rearview mirror, and he saw her, and he slowed down a little bit more and was going, 10 miles an hour, and for some reason he got a really nervous feeling inside, and he slowly sped up because he was scared. He didn't know exactly what it was, and if it was something different. He got a different feeling inside.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he sped up a little bit, and he was going about 40 miles an hour, and he happened to look back again, and it didn't go any further away. It wasn't leaving. And that really started.
You mean the lady in the white dress was as close to him?
Yes, as it was the first time he saw her.
Uh-huh.
And he really started getting nervous. And, he put his foot on the pedal and got up to about 55 miles an hour.
Sure.
And he looked in the mirror, and it wasn't any. As a matter of fact, it was getting closer to him. Now, it was getting closer to his car.
Really?
On the passenger side.
There are many, sir, that have died on that road.
Yes, very. There was a lot of fatal accidents back in the 50s and earlier on and later on also. And as he got up to speed, he started really stepping on. He was frightened now. By this time, he was really frightened. He was going, tipping the car out to, 70, 75 miles an hour is what he said.
That'd be my reaction.
Yeah, he was really moving now.
I'm the let's get out of here kind of person.
Yes. And he looked in the mirror this time, and he looked in as a matter of fact, he didn't look in the mirror. He looked over to his right side where his little side mirror was, to get a better picture. And, the worst thing possibly happened that he thought would happen. and there was a white dress floating next to the car. And when he looked at the window, he said he saw a face of a skeleton with white straw hair looking at him with its mouth opened. And he was so frightened he could not believe it. He slammed his brakes on in the middle of the road. It was late at night. In the middle of the road, slammed his brakes on, closed his eyes as tight as he could, said a prayer. And when he looked back, it was gone. He turned around and went back to his mother's house, which was about 20 miles the other way, and didn't go look back at all. And he went home and he told the story and told it to the whole family. And he well, as far as I know, he never went down that road again, if he could.
These things change your life forever.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the call. It's one thing to tell them, it's another to really experience them. When you do, it changes your life forever and ever. Because it does not matter what anybody else believes or chuckles about or laughs about. If you experience something like that, you're never, ever going to be the same. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Dennis from Vancouver.
Washington?
Yes.
All right.
Let's see. I've got a ghost story. Sort of a ghost story. Almost
A ghost story. Look, that's like being almost pregnant. Either you're a spirit or you're a physical entity. It's one or the other.
Well, I'll explain it and go from there.
All right, then maybe I can tell you.
I was up in Yosemite, National Park in California.
Yes.
And doing a Ouija board.
There we go.
There were, I guess, about 10 or 12 people in the room. There was only 2 of us on the board. The other people were, standing around watching, contributing their energy. And we got something that came across as being, negative. I don't necessarily want to say evil, but definitely negative oriented.
Do you want to tell us what it was?
Well, it wouldn't give us a name, but the impression that I have was that it was something higher up than just an ordinary demon. It was very strong, very intelligent.
Now, was this manifesting itself simply through moving on the Ouija board and spelling things out, or was
That's the way it started.
Okay.
We were, asking questions of it. At first we didn't know that it was evil, but, having done the Ouija board for several years prior to that, we've learned to ask appropriate questions to determine whether it's a positive or a negative entity. And after having determined that it was a negative entity, we were going to stop, but the rest of the people in the room wanted to continue because they were fascinated. So we went ahead and continued with it, which of course was our mistake. But after a while, it told us to turn the lights off.
Oh, so, it did, and you listened, right?
Yeah, we turned the lights off. We turned the candle on.
All right, I'll tell you.
Lit a candle.
Lit a candle. I'll tell you what. I'm coming up on a break. I want you to hold this story for the break. All right?
Okay.
All right. Stay right where you are.
Oh, no problem. Let's see. Where was I? It asked us to turn the lights off. So we lit a candle and we did turn the lights off.
Bad move.
Yeah. Well, we found that out the hard way. We continued, speaking with it for about a minute or so. Yeah, it. Unbeknownst to us, back behind the group, towards the corner of a room, a light started to form, just in the middle of the air. It started off real small, but it was real bright. It was actually lighting up the room.
Right.
The room got real cold, real fast. There was no bad smell or anything, but it was quite cold all of a sudden.
That'd be enough for me. Now, what I want to know, first of all, before you continue is, I'd be out of there. I mean, in a flash, I'd be out of there. Light begins to form where there ought not be light. The room gets cold. That'd be all I'd need.
Since my friend and I had been doing it for, on a semi-regular basis for a couple of years, we were fairly fluent, at least up to that point. We hadn't, gotten anything that strong before, but, we pretty much knew how to, deal with it once it got to that point. My friend started getting sick to his stomach. I started, getting a little bit of a headache. So we stopped, with the board itself and basically moved back away, relaxed ourselves, started saying some prayers, started, at least I started imagining a golden light around myself, which is what I consider a protective light. And, went from there, and we just left the board alone, and the light did fade. We turned on the room lights itself, and, the light just, faded out. And
well, that's good. There are a lot of people who would say to you, you should have been praying in the first place, not messing around with the Ouija board.
Well,
because you know what can happen, sir?
Oh, yeah. I know
you can bring something like that into this world or across from wherever it comes from, and you can put your Ouija board away, and it won't matter, because it's in.
Right, yeah. Once it's done its full transformation, crossover, but we managed to stop it in time.
So what would you advise people out there about Ouija boards?
Well, first of all, there are several good books out there. If you're really determined to use one, read the books on it first. The best thing to do is to, one of the most common questions, if you get a negative-oriented spirit, one of the most common questions that it will ask is, can I come in? And never think that it's referring to coming into the room or into your home or whatever. When it's asking that question, it's wanting to come into you. And you always say no. And if you get a question like that, I would suggest that you stop and don't mess with it anymore.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much for the call. There are many out there who probably ought not mess around with this kind of thing at all. It's very serious. It's not a joke. A Ouija board is simply an instrument, in my opinion. Now, it may be a particularly powerful instrument, but you can invite these sorts of forces in with or without a Ouija board. And my advice to you is, don't do it. Like an unwelcome in-law coming to visit, it might not leave. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Top of the morning to you.
Hello, Art. This is Jeff. I'm calling from Denver.
Denver, yes, sir. K-How, I imagine.
Yes, and I have a true fact story that I can relate to you about spirits, ghosts, or whatever you want to call them.
Let her rip.
I was living in an apartment complex, and a guy came over to me. I met him just inadvertently, and I was working in the legal field, and he asked me to check out whether or not his wife had been married before, and I did that, and I gave him information, and he came over to my apartment.
Had she been? I just want to know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it was bigamy.
Oh my.
He was married to her for 10 years, and she never got a divorce.
Mm-mm.
So he came over to my house. He was crying.
Sure.
I took him over to his apartment, tried to calm him down, and he went into a rage. He started tearing telephones out of the wall, breaking lamps, tables, etc. And then he came at me like he was going to attack me. He got right up close to me, and he fell down, and he started to convulse. And I thought, well, this guy has epilepsy or something.
Sure.
And then he jumped up again and did the same thing again and went down like someone hit him in the head with a ball bat. And
wow.
It was frightening. The hair on my head went up. His eyes were rolling back. He was foaming at the mouth.
You're saying it was like he was in combat with some force.
I don't know what was going on, but what I can say that really frightened me was he was speaking out of his own mouth and cursing me and doing all this, but there were multiple voices coming out. Sometimes there were one, sometimes it sounded like 2 or 3 or 5 or 6. And then he stopped breathing, and the guy was foaming at the mouth and that.
Oh,
I went down, I checked his pulse and all that. I had to give him CPR, get him breathing again, and I had to run over. He pulled the phone out of the wall. I had to run over to the neighbors and ask them to call the cops, and then the cops, the fire department, the EMTs, all them came over. They took him off to ER, and I thought, well, you know, when he was talking to me, it was horrible. It was something I can't even explain.
What would you say? Would you think he was possessed, or was he being beaten by some outside force?
Well, all I can say is there were voices coming out of his body when his eyes were rolled back, and he was foaming at the mouth. He was writhing on the floor, and sometimes it sounded like one person talking. Sometimes it sounded like 5, 4, whatever, talking. And so I gave him the CPR. They took him off, and then that was about 11 o'clock at night. And then about 4 in the morning, they let him out of ER, and he came back to my apartment. And I said, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you.
I'm sure.
Leave. Go. Now. And then about 5 months after that, I met him in a parking lot of a shopping center. And I said, do you realize what's going on? Do you understand? And he said, yeah, can you imagine what those cops did to my apartment? I said, the cops didn't do anything. You did that. And I talked with him for a while, and then he told me that he was an immigrant from France. He was in an orphanage in France, and as far as these convulsions and stuff, I asked him if he was epileptic or all that, and he said no. And I was talking with him, and then he said, I was in an orphanage in France, and 2 priests told me I was possessed. And I said, oh, gee whiz, and that was the end of it. I didn't talk to him after that.
That's enough. All right, my friend, thank you. That's quite enough. Well, what to say about that? We were talking about inviting entities in a few moments ago. Maybe on occasion they invite themselves in. Maybe on occasion they take the minds of those who can be taken. Had you thought of that? Wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, WBC, Duluth Superior.
In Wisconsin.
Actually, I'm in Duluth. But
Duluth, Minnesota. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, your Detroit station is coming through pretty good, too.
All right.
Say, are you going to tell us what happened to your Ouija board?
Absolutely not.
Can't talk you into it, huh?
No, that's one story I really won't tell. It scares me, and I don't like telling it. Not even on this day. It scares the hell out of me. That's one thing that really did scare me, and so I warn people about Ouija boards. How about you? Do you have a story?
Yeah, I got a quick one for you.
All right.
Back in the 50s, my mom was seeing a gentleman in her school. She was a junior in high school. I guess they were really in love with each other, this, that, and the other thing. And one night, she was sleeping, and she just kind of stirred in bed, and she woke up and saw him standing in the room, her bedroom. She, what are you doing here? And he just kind of faded away.
Oh.
And the next day, she found out he was killed in a car accident. So.
Oh, there's a lot of stories like that. There's a lot of stories. Thank you very much. Now, you see, I believe we had Brad Steiger on a couple of weeks ago, and actually we've been kind of doing the warm-up to Halloween for some time now. But there are many, many stories like that. It seems when many die, the energy that is us, the energy that may be our soul, our essence, whatever it is you want to call it, you give your own name to it, has something that it must say to somebody that it has left behind. It must say it. And somehow that energy, either still here on Earth or from elsewhere, finds its way back long enough to assure the person that it loves, or to pass a message that must be passed, information that a loved one must have, and somehow the energy makes it back. Don't ask me. I just do talk shows. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Thank you.
Where are you?
Pardon?
Where are you?
Corpus Christi, Texas.
All right, welcome.
Welcome. Yes, I have several ghost stories, but I know I don't have that much time.
Now give us your best.
Oh, the best. Okay. One time my husband and I had a disagreement, and he had been, just frolicking and carrying on, and I'd about had it. And I was very upset, and my mom told me, well, you need to cool down, and so she said, let's go to this thrift store that happened to be in a hospital, and we were walking down the corridor.
Why is it that when women get upset, they go shopping? It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. But anyway, my mom and I were walking down the corridor, and in the hospital, you hear there's like speakers, and there's like, Dr.
Jones.
Dr. Jones wanted an ER, and you really don't pay attention to these things.
That's right.
And anyway, I was upset, and she says, calm down. I said, no, this is it. I am upset. And nothing you can say, Mother, is going to change my mind. She says, well, I really think you need to cool down. I said, well, nope, that's it. At that point, we heard a voice walk by, and it just asked in a real deep voice, where did you leave Ben? And we didn't pay any attention to it until we walked about 2 feet. And then my mom and I looked at each other, and we turned around together, and we saw a tall, almost Frankenstein stature man and a short man, and they both had on those white gowns, and their skin was gray tone. And we both looked at it, and then I kept looking at it, and then the tall guy turns around in like a Frankenstein stance and looks directly into my eyes, and he lifts his head up just a bit, like telling me, I'm gonna get you, because you're vulnerable, because you can be mine. And then he just turns around and he walks off with the other short guy. And we both looked at them, and their skin tone was like, it was gray, as if they had been dead for years. And then I looked at my mom, and she looks at me, and she says, make the sign of the cross. We both made the sign of the cross. And she says, look, when you're this upset with somebody, the evil spirits know that you're vulnerable. And at this point, she says, you need to cool down, because this is how bad things happen.
Well, I'll bet you if her first speech didn't work, this one did.
Yeah, well, I still haven't forgiven him, but...
you did calm down.
Oh, yeah, I did calm down. And there are, I just want to tell everybody that there are bad spirits out there.
Yes.
And that when you're being negative and you're vulnerable and you don't have the fear of Christ or something that's more powerful than them, then they can get you. But if you have, if you can say a prayer now and then...
it's a matter of weakness.
It's a matter of like you were saying. It's a matter of weakness, and they'll come right on in, and this is how bad things happen.
It's such a good point. Thank you. Even if I were to relate it to what I do, and on this program, we talk about a million things. This is like any other, not like any other program you've ever heard. We delve into areas that are there really is no explanation for it. I can't put it into words. You're just going to have to listen to the program, not just this one, but the one we do on a regular basis, and you'll begin to get the idea. We don't bore in. We're not like other talk shows. We don't bore in only on politics or anything else. We do whatever comes up on any given night. Top of the morning, you're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. Where are you calling from, please?
Hi, Art. Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City, yes.
Listen, sir, I'd like to interject a note of caution from the cultural mecca of all that is the United States. First of all, if also before I can, with the death of Vincent Price, I want to say you made it into my top 4 American heroes, sir.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. Anyway, listen, I had an experience with the Ouija board, and just to note that biblically, I don't know how you feel about Christianity, but the scriptures do tell us that ghosts, the spirits of the dead do not come back to haunt the living. In fact, they're demons taking manifestations in order to fool the relatives of those that have already passed on. So
how then, if that's the case, do you account for some of the stories like we've heard this morning, the lady with the car and no brakes, spirits that seem to be those of departed loved ones that are here to help?
Well, a lot of times, you don't have the full stories. A lot of these spirits may be, intending to appear as benevolent, when in fact the intentions may be very malign. That's not what I wanted to talk about. I want to give you my own experience very quickly.
Sure.
What I was doing is I was playing with a Ouija board alone, long time ago.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. And I began having an argument with the planchette. Well, I thought, this is nonsense. This is my own energy. And, there's nothing in this. And at one point, every time that I would push the planchette to the S, the phone would ring. And so I asked the board if it were in fact ringing the phone, and it moves to the yes position. Well, I ran across the room to answer the phone. The phone kept ringing, and there was it was a crackling line. It sounded, the voice was distant, miles away,
yes.
Ancient voice, and it says, "You shall," and I didn't have the guts to listen to it. I hung the phone up. And, for the next 7 years, this phenomena have been happening in my life. For example, I'll pass by cars.
Haven't you forevermore, if I can stop you, wondered, you shall what?
I don't know.
How could you hang up?
I really did not want to know. I didn't want to hear what it was going to say.
Okay.
But it is a warning. Don't, I've had an aversion to the paraphernalia of the occult ever since. And I think, there is...
I have a lot of respect for Ouija boards. I've had an experience with one myself, and I won't even talk about it.
Well, as I said, it may answer your question of whether or not you would spin around and see what it was there that was manifesting itself, or go into a haunted house. I've done it since the experience, but in every case I've rooted.
I appreciate your call, sir.
Certainly. Have a good morning.
All right, that's Salt Lake City with a caution, and a well-given caution it was, too, I might add. Well-given caution. You be careful. There are lots of things out there that we don't understand, and I think the possibility exists that a Ouija board is just inviting trouble. Line 3, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. How you doing?
Fine, sir. Welcome to the program.
Real good show tonight.
Thank you.
Say, I have a question. That caller that called last hour about the glowing gravestone.
Yes.
There's a phenomenon called St. Elmo's fire.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But St. Elmo's fire tends not to return predictably to the same place again and again.
Yeah. During a...
Not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying that on many occasions the caller said he saw this glowing gravestone, and that it would be St. Elmo's fire that many times is not probable.
That's true, but that'd be something you really would want to see once, and I think that'd be about it.
That'd do me.
Yeah. Well, take it easy.
All right. Thank you. Just wanted to suggest that possibility, I guess. Hi, on the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Yeah. Hi.
Where are you, sir?
I'm in Alaska.
Alaska. All right.
I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I was a sniper. And I went to Grenada, and I got hit in the knee with a bullet. And from pictures in the family, it was my great-great-grandfather in a Civil War uniform that sat down and froze my leg. And the Grenada is a jungle, and he said, "Everything will be okay, boy. Everything will be okay." And this is the first time I've talked about it, other than to the military psychologist. And
all right, if you don't mind, I want to be sure I understand. You were part of the invasion force. You were a sniper. You were in Grenada.
Yeah, my job was to make sure none of the Cubans got into the students at the university.
And so you were stationed there, and you were just going to take them out if you had to.
Yes. And an anti-sniper got me. My A-gunner ended up getting him.
Hit you in the leg?
Yeah, in the knee.
Oh, God.
Well, it went from the knee, at the end of my military career, went from the knee up around the pelvis bone and out the other ankle. The bullet traveled all.
What a horrible injury.
Yeah, it hurt. Very much so.
And so you were laying there?
Yeah, we all instantly fell. There was nothing I could do. And like I say, through pictures of the family photo album, it was I think it'd be he was in the Civil War, and it'd be 3 great-grandfathers sat down and froze my leg. My leg was frozen, not cauterized, it was frozen.
Frozen?
The whole wound, which is something nobody's been able to explain. And he said, everything will be okay now, boy. Everything will be okay.
And left?
Yeah.
That's eerie. What did the medics say?
Medics, they were just asking me what we'd done, how we'd done this, where did we get ice. Nobody could understand. The psychologist told me that it was in the lust of battle, and that I'd lost a lot of blood, and that I wasn't sure what was happening. But my spotter, who was also a sniper, he felt something cold as he was taking the other man out, and he has shot before. It wasn't, it's not the coldness you feel when you take a man out.
I understand.
It was completely different, and I was scared, but at the same time there was this great feeling of purity and just the joy of knowing that I had a family member there, because I really thought that the pain that I was feeling, I knew where the bullet went out. I didn't know what the damages were.
That's the most incredible story I've ever heard, and I really appreciate your call, sir. Thank you. Wow. For that one, I'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Good morning, you're on the air. Coast would have been. You were a dial tone. Spirit of a dial tone. Wildcard line 3, you're on the air.
Hello, Art.
Hello.
Yes, this is Mark from Anderson, California.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, I had a situation that happened a couple years ago. I was sitting at a friend's house, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And we were sitting there talking about, people that we've known throughout our lives. And I was sitting in a chair, and all of a sudden, I bent over in extreme pain. I mean, it took me to the floor, out of the chair onto the floor on my right side. And then I kind of got a headache, and we were just, for some reason, my friend Craig and I both noted the time.
Right.
The thing that was strange was the next day, my friend was looking through the paper and noticed that a friend of mine had been killed. I used to work at a convenience store, and she used to come in, and her parents didn't really listen to her, and I was kind of like her mentor. I was her sounding board, whenever she had problems.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that this young lady named Kelly had died. And I knew the area where she'd been hit by a car. I knew that much. And I went out into the area, and I was just kind of walking around. By feel, I found the area where she was hit, just through whatever I have in myself that told me this is it.
You just knew it.
I just knew it. And we were kind of kicking around, and we saw one of the sheriff's deputies' car go up there, and I went and flagged him down and asked him if he had been working the night she got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And he said yes, and I told him that she was a friend of mine, and I said to him, I know this is going to sound morbid, but what side of her body did the truck impact her on? He told me that the initial strike hit her on the right side, fracturing her pelvis. She flipped up over the truck and landed on her head and was killed immediately. Now, this was within 5 minutes. This was the night before I fell over. This was in 5 minutes of that time that the time of death was pronounced. And my belief is that she came to me and said goodbye. And it was just too weird. And a friend of mine if you'd like, he was there. I told him if he would like, he could call back and verify because he was there, and he was kind of freaked out as the couple days where we talked to the sheriff's deputy and stuff.
I'm just convinced it happens. People come back. People do come back, and they do say goodbye.
My friend and I are researching a book on. We're going to be writing a book basically on poltergeist and demonology. And I was wondering if either I could give you an address that people could write letters to, because we're looking for input, or if you'd prefer that I mailed it to you.
Well, if I were you, I would roll a tape on this program.
Okay, well, I realize...
All right. Otherwise, I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
All right, thank you. You might want to, you really might want to get a copy of this program. Because these are some of the most serious stories that I've ever heard. And I don't know where you could go to get a better rendition of stuff that'll just put the hackles right down your back. This is pretty good this morning. Good morning. On our first-time caller line, you're on the air. Where are you, please?
I'm calling from Denver.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Art, I want to tell you that Ouija board, if you mess with that, it happened to me when I was 9 years old. It's an entrance for a satanic spirit to enter your body. And Dr. Ken Olson, who was on the Maury Povich show...
Maury Povich.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Thank you. He was the person that released that terrible demonic spirit. And it happened to me when I was 9 through age 54, the worst type of satanic deprivation that could ever enter a human body. And I'm telling you, leave it alone. Don't allow anyone to touch or be around or play around with a Ouija board. Because if you don't have someone like Dr. Ken Olson, who is an exorcist, a vessel of Jesus Christ, he is an instrument of God, to pray to release that, it can cause the worst type of nightmares that you could ever have, and the worst type of life that you could ever have. And I want to tell you the truth, and your listeners, to never be around the Ouija board or allow any type of activity.
Well, I'm glad you gave everybody else the caution. I don't need it. Believe me, I've got that caution. Thank you for the call. That's Denver. And heed what that man says. Ouija boards are bizarre things that do seem to, hate to use the word door, open the door, but open a channel, open a conduit for things that you really don't want around you. Line 3, you're on the air. Good morning.
Okay, I'm calling from Reno.
Reno, oh, KOH, yes.
And this concerns the old mining camp of Virginia City, where the big mines, the big mines been abandoned for many years, but there are 700 miles of shafts and tunnels and drifts and winzes underground.
Yes, sir.
200 miles, a big labyrinth. And I was having lunch with my parents in Virginia City, and knocking at the back door, and came an old friend of my dad's, very agitated, a big lump in his forehead, and it was split, his cut, and blood was coming down, so folks patched him up, and he, like many of the old retired miners, he liked to roam through the abandoned mines, take samples out and stuff like that, and he was in the mine called the Ward Mine, southeast of Virginia City.
Is that W-A-R-D, Ward?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I guess he had his carbide lamp in his hat. And he turned the corner and come down a corridor. There, kind of illuminated, was a man buried up almost to his head in cave-in dirt. His arms were free, and he was shaking them and waving his head back and forth. His face was contorted, and obviously a cave in there. Our friend was so startled that he turned around and started to run. timber over the roof of the mine, and he ran into it. That's where he got that knock on the head. Well, when he told the story around town, people just laughed and said, well, he must have bumped his head first and had a
Sure.
Several years later, some mining engineers were looking at the maps of the old mines, and they were examining the ward, and it has all the details. And said, my goodness, there was a fatal cave-in the tunnel number so-and-so. And that was the one.
That is really eerie.
True.
That's really eerie. I understand, sir. I understand. I really thank you for the call.
Okay, Art.
And so there you go. There's a mining story. A man buried almost to his head, who had died violently and quickly and unexpectedly. The worrisome part, of course, of that is, if that is to be the manner of your death or mine, would we be forever trapped here on Earth in such a destined to repeat such a gruesome experience again and again, though it wasn't something that was from some deviant behavior that we had exhibited, but simply the unlucky moment of a mine caving in on us? Line 1, you're on the air.
Morning, Art. I thought I'd give you a call. Been listening to these programs. I'll give you an experience. A couple of years ago, coming in on 163, I was approaching Level Canyon turnoff. And you know where the old Christmas tree used to be?
Yes.
Okay, it was right after that fire. It was lightning, and we were joking around as we were driving. And I said, you know, and defiantly, like, just show me that you're out there. Make me a believer. And about that time, literally 2 bolts of lightning came right across the front of the truck and hit the side of the road about, maybe 400 yards up from where we were traveling. And it was just like out of a Star War. I mean, it was 1 bolt from one side of the car and 1 from the other. And we pulled over and sat there for about 5 minutes and drove on up to Mountain Pass, and like I said...
Tell me something. Had you said this mentally, crying out, or had you said it aloud?
We were talking about, and in the conversation, I said it out loud. I told him, I said, Bill, I said, you know, just show me out there, God. If you're out there, make me a believer. And, you know, a couple strikes around us, but then, you know, well, that was close. Give me another sign. Make sure that you can hear me, you know.
Well, I'm glad you didn't ask for absolute proof.
Well, tell you what, I've never asked for something again that I didn't want.
Oh, man, what a story. Now, how has this affected you, and how has it affected Bill?
Well, we talk about it occasionally, and like I said, we just look at each other and shake our heads. And like I said, to me, it's a thing in life now. I don't ask for anything that, you know, in a joking manner anymore.
It's been said, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it might come true.
Thank you for the story. Take care. That's, that was quite a story. That's a local story, too. That's a road I travel every day. And it's a dark road. And it's a dangerous road that I travel, Highway 160. I do about 120 miles a day on it. There have been a lot of people killed. There are a lot of crosses placed on the roadside to designate the place where it's occurred. I've never seen anything. Not yet. Good morning. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm calling from Genoa, Nevada.
Where in Nevada?
Genoa.
Genoa, Nevada.
Oh, Genoa.
Where is that?
It is just about 10 miles south of Carson City. It's the first Nevada settlement.
Very good.
And anyway, I was, this was about 2 years ago, my story. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I was going out with a girl who had just got into recovery, and we were in counseling, and we were doing a bunch of inner child work. And, you know, one of the reasons we got along so well, our therapist says, because we played so well together. Well, this whole relationship went sour, and she began dating this other man, and they were going to move to Cleveland, Ohio. And anyway, so one night I'm laying in my bed, and this therapy work that we're doing with inner child, you have to close your eyes and imagine this child and you know what that child was doing at the time. And I was laying in my bed and my eyes were open, and all of a sudden this little girl, about 8 years old, she had a pixie haircut and she was wearing shorts and a small halter top, came up, and she was standing right next to my bed, and my eyes were wide open. And it was that my girlfriend is like, you know, a smaller version of her, right? And this girl, without opening her lips or anything, said, you know, to me, I've come to play with Chris, who was like, and that's my name and my inner child. So anyway, so this little girl is standing there, and she's talking to me. She says, and I'm leaving, I'm moving, and I wanted to come and play. And so she starts taking off with this other little kid. I'm assuming it was me, and they're running. And all of a sudden, then I don't see walls in my room or anything. I just see them out like in a field running.
Wow.
And I keep saying out loud to this girl who I was had since not dated, Gary, do you feel this? I was wondering if there was a connection between her and me.
Right.
And I kept saying, do you feel this? Are you here? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? And then after they got done playing this, and this went on for I'm going to guess 10 minutes. And then the little girl walked back up and said thank you, and that she was leaving, and that, you know, hopefully she would come back to see us again. And I had told her, I mean, I'm talking directly to this. She was transparent, but she was still standing right there. And I was telling her, I said, you can come back anytime you want. It was not a fear thing. I was not afraid.
Why not?
Well, because she was...
I guess because it was somebody you knew, somebody you know.
Right, I think so. And she was just, you know, 8 years old, 9 years old, and just real shy, and you know...
I would like to think I could react as you did. I'm going to have to leave the line because we're out of time. I thank you for the call. I would like to think that I would react that way. And maybe, if it was somebody that I had known, somebody that I was comfortable with, and the experience felt benign, maybe I would be. But I'm not sure of that. Line 2, you're on the air.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Still in Las Vegas?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to relate an experience I had, but first I'd like to see if I can jog your memory. The last time I called in was a year or so ago, and you had put out a question over the air, and I think it's somewhat apropos of tonight also. The question that you put out was, that night was, what do you think the purpose of life is?
That's right.
And my call to you was a story that was related to me, and I told you at the time I wasn't sure I believed or accepted it, is that this is where I want to see if I can jog your memory, that we were all gods and goddesses, and we had everything and could do everything, and so we decided to play a game, and the game was called life, and part of the rules of the game...
I remember.
Yeah, okay.
You're right. The question and tonight's topic go together very well. Go ahead now.
Some years ago, in the late 60s, I was living in Los Angeles, and I made a couple of acquaintances. They had a small business going. One was a writer, the other was a printer, an artist, and they had made up copies of a poster that they came up with. And in our dealings, they asked that would I sell the poster for them. I agreed to, and for a while I sold it around the Los Angeles area to bookstores and so on. And then they suggested, why don't you make a trip to the Bay Area, to San Francisco, and see how it'll go up there. It was during the time of the Haight-Ashbury things, during the hippie days.
Oh, I remember the time.
And so I agreed to make the trip, and I went up there, and the evening that I arrived in San Francisco, before I decided to get a hotel room, I decided to eat in a restaurant, and then after that I went to a piano bar. I thought I'd just kind of rest for a while and listen to some music, and a fellow sitting next to me at the piano bar and I got to talking, and I let him know that I was up from L.A., and he said, well, you don't have to get a hotel room. There's a house that I know of that isn't being occupied right now, and I've got the key, and you're welcome to use it. I went to the house, and it was on a street of the old Victorian homes that are so frequent in San Francisco. This was about the middle of the block, and it was the only one in the whole row of Victorian homes on that block that was set in from the others. I thought that was interesting. I went up the porch and unlocked the door and turned on the light and went inside.
Right.
But as I entered, I got a very uneasy feeling in my gut. And as I got further into the place, into the house, that feeling got stronger. And I just figured, oh, well.
Uneasy as in you shouldn't be there?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, listen, we're short on time, so...
Oh, I wanted to get the story out. Anyway, so I walked into the kitchen, and which was all the way in the back, and there were windows, multi-windows, and a window door, and I opened the door and was going to step out, and I paused, and I looked down, and there were no stairs, and it was about 10 feet straight down. I then proceeded into the living room, and I've got a much more uneasy feeling.
We're about to run out of time.
I went up the stairs slowly, and I got to the head of the stairs. There were 2 bedrooms. I could not enter either of the bedrooms. I just had to leave. It became unbearable to be there, even though my mind was saying, there's nothing wrong here, there's nothing wrong here. I just couldn't stay. It was extremely uncomfortable.
All right, we're going to have to hold it there. Thank you very much for the call, and good morning. Have you ever had that happen? Something inside of you so strongly compelling you to leave, telling you that something is urgently, terribly, profoundly wrong. Good morning. First-time caller line, you're on the air.
Morning, Art Bell.
Yes, where are you calling from?
This is Pavo.
Pavo in Canada. Yes, you have something that relates to all this, Pavo?
Yes, I do.
That's amazing. All right, let's hear it.
Usually, people that enter into my domain receive an eerie feeling when they see all of the murals and...
I can only imagine what your area looks like, Pavo.
But there's one room in my house that is a shrine to you-know-who.
Hitler.
Yes. And when you walk in, the presence is so strong that the power, you feel the power.
Thank you, Pavo. That is Pavo, who is in Canada. He's up in the Edmonton area, I believe, and Pavo is a Nazi. He really is a Nazi. And he was talking about what he does now. And his shrine, I don't have to be there to imagine what it is like. And I can easily imagine that it imparts the exact feeling that he was just talking about. Eerie. Wildcard line 3, you're on the air. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Bell, calling from Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, yes, sir.
Just a real quick story, not quite as heavy as most of them, but I guess I was about 2 years old. My father told me about this. I had a favorite uncle, and I can't really remember his name right now because, again, I was 2 years old, but we'll just call him Uncle Joe. So I guess out of the clear blue sky one day, I wanted to go see Uncle Joe, and they said, no, it's too far away. It's about a 100-mile drive or something. This was back in the 50s, and I guess I had a fit, according to my father, and I just had to go see Uncle Joe, you know. So they decided that weekend to go see Uncle Joe, so we went up there and had a nice visit, and then a couple weeks later he died, you know. So then, you know, a short time later, say a couple months later, I wanted to go see another relative, and of course they didn't die, but my dad said they just about went crazy because they were afraid that something was going to go wrong with this relative.
In other words, they figured that you had some precognitive...
Yeah, they said after the first time they figured they were afraid of picking up anybody's name, so it's just a short little story.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Get off the air because you get a lot of good stories. I don't want to...
Yeah, there really have been some tremendous...
Excellent show.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to go see Uncle So-and-so. Quickly, call him, tell him to stay in bed today. I don't think it works like that, though, do you? I think that things that are going to happen. Don't you? Or do you think that that with the help of somebody who's been around before, some things that might happen otherwise would not, or can be avoided? Like the lady with the story about the brakes. Line 3, you're on the air. Hello, line 3. No, you're not. Wild card, line 3, you're on the air.
Art.
Yes.
I'm calling from Anchorage, Alaska.
Welcome to the program.
All right. I was wanting to tell you a little story here that happened to me about 3 years ago.
All right, go right ahead.
All right. I was staying with some friends, and my mom lives up here in Anchorage, or in King Salmon, and she was telling me that she had a bad dream or whatever about me getting in a wreck over the weekend. And I was like, well, just shrugged it off or whatever, didn't think about it. And sure enough, the weekend came around, and I got in a really serious motorcycle wreck.
Oh.
And was in the hospital for a long time and everything, and she was in the hospital, and she was like, she just couldn't believe that it actually happened or whatever. And she was sitting there trying to explain to me what really had went on that night, that she had the bad dream. And she said that someone had actually came to her that night while she was asleep or whatever, and woke her up. She didn't know who it was, no face or nothing, or any kind of, and told my mother that I was going to die at the end of the week.
Really?
And she told me I was just supposed to get in a wreck or whatever, just try to be careful. And she didn't tell me I was going to die. She just told me I was going to get in a wreck. And she said, she was like, tell me what.
Why? If she would tell you that, I'm curious. If she would tell you, be careful or you're going to be in a wreck, and she would go to all that trouble to caution you about that, why wouldn't she give you the original message and try to warn you away or try to change what was to be?
I really don't know. I'm just assuming she didn't probably want to worry me or scare me or whatever, because she's had these, I'm not saying she's psychic or nothing, but she's done the same thing to her real father. Her real father was really deadly sick down in Florida, and no one knew anything about her, so she called down and talked to one of her sisters to go tell him to check on him. And sure enough, he went there. They went to check him out and everything, and he was, they found him on the floor, and he was not in the greatest health or whatever. And it's just been a couple of weird coincidences or just something she's definitely got some sort of weird power, not power, but just some sort of gift, I guess, or something.
I take it any similar caution given now, you would really...
Most definitely, yeah.
All right, thank you very much for the call.
All right.
You take care from the state of Alaska. Line 1, you're on the air.
Oh, it's me?
It's you.
Oh, hi.
Hi there.
My name's Don. I'm a first-time caller.
Hi, Don.
And I'm coming from Vegas. I used to live out there in Pahrump, and I have two quick stories, and both of them happened while I was living out there.
All right, go right ahead. It is a strange place.
Yeah. Well, one of them, the first one is I was dating this girl in St. George, and I happened to be there late for one weekend, and I had to be back in Pahrump for work the next morning. But I was there too late, so I stayed the night at her house in their guest bedroom. And I had already gone to sleep. The doors were shut and the lights were off and everything.
Right.
And for some reason, I woke up and I looked towards the door, and I could see, 3, 4, 5 people looking in at me. So I rubbed my eyes because I thought, I was seeing something. And after I rubbed my eyes, I saw someone standing next to me in the bed. And you know how you can see, even though it's dark, you can still kind of see him.
Yes.
He had, I could tell he was blonde. And I was about to say something to him, ask him what he's doing, because it didn't appear to me that he might be a spirit.
Yes.
And just before I started to talk, he proceeded to fall on top of me, and I jumped back And
So you felt the physical presence.
no, I didn't feel it. I jumped back because I thought someone was going to fall on top of me. And as soon as he was about to fall on top of me, he disappeared. And
that was in Pahrump?
no, that was in St. George.
All right, and now you've got a story about Pahrump.
Yeah, I used to play football out there in Pahrump. I graduated in '82. I think I was a junior at the time.
All right, listen. Hold on. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to do a newscast, and I'm going to come right back to you.
Okay.
All right, stay right there. And he's got a story about my hometown, Little Pahrump, Nevada. We're telling ghost stories, real ghost stories. If you have one, feel free to join us. If you don't, sit back and listen. Turn out the lights if you dare and the radio up. And you may may want to tell us as the morning wears on how you're doing. Line 1, you're back on the air again.
Okay.
And now, Pahrump, Nevada.
Yeah. I was playing football for him, and I think I was a junior, and we had an away game. So I was on the varsity bus, and my sister was on the junior varsity bus. And for some reason, the junior varsity bus got way behind us. And so we showed up at the high school, and I had the car with me. And so I decided to just stay there and wait for my sister with the car. And after everybody had left, I got in the car, and I laid the seat back just to go to sleep. And then next thing I noticed, the JV bus came, and I could see people walking out. I could hear the voices. I recognized the voices. Then I woke up and looked out, and nothing was there. I didn't think much of it because, I just thought, I'm just dreaming.
Dreaming, yeah.
I went back to sleep, and I saw the exact same thing again. I saw the bus, saw the people getting out of the bus, heard the voices, but this time I knew I was dreaming, and I tried to wake up, and I had a hard time. But finally I woke myself up, looked out, and there was nothing there. So then I decided to go back to sleep. That was a little scary, but I went back to sleep, and I saw the exact same thing, only this time I saw my sister walk up to the side of the car. She had one of her friends with her, and she was asking to be let in. And this time, and I knew I was dreaming again, but this time I had a real hard time waking up. And finally I had to scream just to wake up. And that time I decided I'm getting out of here. And so I just went home and decided to wait for the phone call at home. And I've grown up in the country, so being out in the country alone at night never really bothered me, but this really did. And
I understand. I think it odd that you knew you were in a dream. I've never had that experience. My dreams have always been as reality until I woke up and knew. When you wake up, you had a dream, right? But I've never known in a dream that I was dreaming. That's odd.
And I lived about a half a mile from one of those houses of ill repute that you talk about, so you know how far I had to drive home from high school.
I do. I thank you for the call.
All right, thanks.
And, yes, indeed. I know the area. Good morning on our phone. Oh, you would have been. Wildcard line 3, instead you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art. I have a little story. This goes back to, about the early 70s.
Where are you?
I'm calling from Linwood, Washington.
All right.
ABI. My name's Tom. I was traveling across Nevada from Idaho down to California, and it was early in the morning, and I was outside of Winnemucca about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and I was by myself, and I'm out of breath. Okay. As I was driving along, it was out in the desert area, and there was virtually uninhabited.
Right.
And a car came up behind me with two inhabitants who they started following right on my bumper. And I became concerned because it became apparent that they were really interested in getting me stopped. And they would pull up alongside and motion me over and things like that. And I was afraid that, I was afraid they were going to
assault you, rob you, whatever. Yeah, sure, that'd be natural.
So as we went along, this played out for several miles, and they kept motioning for me to pull over, and they come up alongside, and I became quite fearful. Well, the oddest thing happened. I had a flat tire, and I could feel the car start to sway. Sure. And I pulled up to a stop, and off to the right was a house, and this car pulled up along and stopped behind me, and I didn't know what to do. I was afraid to get out, and somebody came out of this house to a pickup that was running. I mean, this was the only house in the area. There was nothing else around. Right. And he walked out and he looked, and one of the people in the car pointed to this guy, and then they went ahead and pulled on by me and took off. So I got out and I looked at the man, and he was doing something around the pickup, and so I went ahead and got my tire out and changed it and went on my way. Well, this left, it made me quite fearful. Yes. Well, on the way back from California back to Idaho, I looked for this place. I wanted to stop, and it left such a mark on me psychologically. Sure. I found the place. It was totally uninhabited. No windows, no doors, just a little shack. Yes. And what do you think happened to you? I mean, I honestly don't know. I honestly feel that something kept me from being harmed. Something wanted to warn you. Yes. Well, that's these two guys away is what happened. That's quite a story. Thank you. You're welcome. Good morning. On our first-time caller line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Where are you, sir?
I'm in Reno.
Reno.
My name's John. I'm from, I'm in Sparks. I've been listening to your show on spooks and goblins here, and let me turn down this radio.
No, just actually turn it off all the way. Just extinguish it.
There, it's out.
Right.
And I got an interesting story. My wife used to, or my ex-wife used to dabble with Ouija boards and what have you, and I understand exactly how you feel. I can hear it in your voice, but we were horsing around with it one night, and the following weekend I'd gone out fishing with a friend of mine and came back later that evening, and we watched TV for a while, and then we went to bed, I guess about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. And the back door of the house and the front door of the house were in line with each other. And our bedroom was at the other end of the house. Right. And I was just dozing off, and I swore I heard the back door open. And somebody in heavy boots closed the door and walked through my kitchen. I went to my dresser drawer, and I grabbed my 9mm, and I took it out, and I'm standing in the hallway thinking, God, I hope I don't have to do this. I got locked and loaded, and I swung out into the hallway, and there was just enough residual light in the living room where I could see the silhouette of this individual, about 6'3", pretty stocky person. And I uttered some explicatives deleted and told him to freeze right where he was, or I was going to dump him. And you remember the old window shades where you take and you pull them down, you let them go, and they just go up and spin around?
Very well, yes.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened to this silhouette.
Oh, you're
straight up.
Really? Just like a window?
Just like the old window shades. It just went straight up and vanished. And that was a very puckering experience, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And I'll never forget it. We had other interesting happenings in that house too. We had clocks that would mysteriously just slide off the shelf and drop onto the floor for no reason at all.
Well, this has been sphincter tightening enough for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a really great show. I want to get off the air and listen some more.
All right. Thank you. Have a good morning. Oh, boy. That's pretty descriptive, like a Windows. Like that. That's the kind of thing that'll put you on your knees for a while. Line 3, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Chris in Carson City.
Hi, Chris.
And I'm calling. This is a story that my brother told
All right.
to me.
All right.
And I have no doubt that it's true. He doesn't engage in lying. But my brother was taking a nap. First of all, my father passed away in June of 91. And he had a very sudden heart attack. I mean, I had dinner with him an hour before, and he was perfectly fine. We were joking, and
People always say that. He was fine.
he was. And we were joking about a local casino there where I like and he didn't. And he was saying, well, if I go in there to cash a check with you, I've got to take a shower because it's so greasy, you know. And he was just joking.
Yeah.
And it was very sudden. Nobody was expecting it. He died very quickly in his rocking chair in a candy bar. And about 6 months later, my brother was taking a nap. He worked graveyard, and he had to sleep during the day. And he had somebody watching his children in the other room. Well, in his dream, he heard a phone ring. Now, he has no phone in his bedroom. But in his dream, he heard the phone ring, and he picks up the phone, and it's my father on the other end of the line. Now, my father was a compulsive gambler, and I think one of the things that killed him was the stress of having gambled away everything that he and my mom had.
Guilt.
And my brother said that he heard casino noises in the background, and the noises of slot machines, and he could tell that my father was calling from a casino.
Yes.
He said, I need to talk to you, and I need to make it quick. I've gambled away all my prayers, or I've cashed in all my prayers to make this call to you. And apparently, the way my dad said, he said, the way my dad had it, people pray for you, and the prayers are part of the economy of this place where he was. And as many prayers as people prayed for you, that was the things that you could do. And he was using all his prayers to make this call. And he said, I have a message for you. He said, you're going to die within a year. But that's not the message. I have a more important message that I really need to get to you. And before he could get the message to my brother, the phone went dead. And my brother woke up. He came out of the room, and he didn't think much about it except that it was a dream and the stress of my father having passed away. And my little niece came in and said, Daddy, who called you, and why is there a phone in your room? And now it's been 2 years, my brother isn't dead. And so I kind of discounted the whole thing, except that my mom said that there are different ways of dying. Now, when my dad died, my brother was always dependent on my dad for everything, and never really could hold a job, never really could do anything. As soon as my dad died, my brother started going to college. He started getting work, getting a job.
Doing all the things that had your dad lived, he would have wanted him to.
Now, I think that my dad was saying that, hey, the old Dan is going to die in a year. There's going to be a new Dan. That's the way I see it, that there's there's a totally different man, responsible, taking responsibility in his life, doing the things in his life that he should be doing.
I've got you. I've got
I would
to
like
go.
to know, though, what the other message was.
I can imagine. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the story, and a good one it was. Now, there's lots of ways to die. Line 1, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Joyce Button from Toppenish, Washington.
Hi, Joyce.
How are you doing this morning?
Fine. Just fine.
Good. Oh, well, first off, I wanted to tell you that I'm an Indian woman, and I really can identify with some of the things your callers have been saying. But I wanted to talk about Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe, all right.
If you can remember that fellow.
Oh, I do very well, yes.
Okay. I was married in 1977 to a man that, well, they have a long book. I guess it dates back years and years ago. And really wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to what was going on in his life. But being an Indian woman, there's a lot of spirituality in my own family line. But I thought was really strange is how both of us kind of came together, and a lot of really weird things were happening in our life. Of course, we're not married anymore, thank God, but at the time, I didn't really understand what was going on with him, but looking back on it, I'm kind of scared that if I ever see him again, it'll be right before I die, because that fellow said, well, I got to go see Uncle Joe. Everywhere he went, and I know that his family, they were older, but he would go like to see, you know, he'd want to go see his aunt or his uncle or whatever, and right before he got there, they'd already be gone. And the same thing happened with a teacher that...
It would be just a sudden impulse. He didn't have these frequently, right? But when he did have them, somebody actually died?
Right. And I really wasn't paying it a whole lot of attention, you know, what was going on, until my foster father, who I was real close to, he had a terminal illness, and we all knew he was going to pass away. He was dying of cancer over on Woodby Island, and I went over there and I said, hey, I've got to go, I've got to get ready right now, and I threw my things together and took off, and I had this vision, one of the first visions I've had, and I've had quite a few since, but there was this airplane that looked like a tiny toy airplane, and these 3 huge angels behind it. And then you could see inside this airplane and these passengers, but this one passenger, I couldn't see their face, and it was like a real tiny airplane, and he was wearing a gray jacket. Well, my husband had to work overtime and said that he couldn't go to see my father, and they were real close. Well, he came, there was a knock at the door, and I looked out, and there he was, and I really didn't think anything of it, and I opened up the door, and there was this terrible feeling of death that just went right through me. And my foster brother, who was a nurse, literally ran down the hall, and he said, no, let me get him ready for you first. And I just got terrified, and I took a look at his face, and I said, well, let's go across the street and see the kids, because they were staying at the neighbors. And halfway through the clearing, I felt my father die. And I just felt so horrible when I felt his spirit, you know, just leave. And of course, I knew my dad was dead, and I went and tried to get him involved with seeing the children. When we got back, my mom was having a glass of high cherry wine. Dad had always made wine himself, and she looked right at my husband's face, and she just with hate in her eyes, and she said, well, he's dead, you know, like he had been the one to kill him. And all of a sudden, I remember that vision of that gray coat, and I looked at my husband, he was wearing that gray jacket, and it was him. He was coming, you know, in that tiny plane. And that's how he had gotten there. He had flown there, chartered a small plane to come into Woodby Island, taken a taxi, and come to the house. And all of a sudden, all the pieces fit together, and I looked back, and I thought, oh, my God, you know, he told me that he was going down the hall right before his father died.
Well, listen, we're out of time, but if ever a woman had reason not to see an ex, if you hear he's on the way to visit you, I'd grab the nearest passport and be headed out.
I think I will.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. And while we're on the subject of airplanes, I have a very good friend that works for one of the major airlines in this country, maybe the biggest airline, actually. And there are some planes, and I'm intentionally not going to tell you which airline it is. Actually, they've made movies about it. But because of the violent nature of airplane crashes, companies that have been in the business for a very long time and have had crashes know planes are haunted. There are some bone-chilling stories to be told about haunted airplanes. And because I don't want to compromise something that's been told to me, I'm not going to pass it on to you. I'm just going to say, believe it. There are some airplanes that are that have more flying than just paying passengers, let me put it that way. Good morning. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
This is Alan from Birmingham, Alabama.
Alan from Birmingham. Hi, Alan. How you doing?
Still doing the stuff on the ghost stories?
Oh, we sure are, Alan.
All right. Well, I got one for you.
All right.
All right, me and my best friend, ever since we met, we've been having like strange occurrences happening whenever we're around each other.
Right.
And you know, we could like know what each other's thinking, and if something happens to one of us, you know, the other knows about it and things like that.
Sure.
Well, he joined the Army about 2.5 years ago.
Good morning. I kind of like to share a story, well, 3 stories if I have the time.
All right. Where are you? Where are you, please?
I'm in Little Lake, California.
Little Lake, California. All right, go ahead.
The first time that I ever had some sort of strange experience, I was lying in my bed with my eyes closed, and I could see these faces floating through my room. And they were a lot like the faces out of the death pits of the concentration camps. They were hollow-eyed and gaping mouths. And at first I was kind of mystified by it, and it seemed like minutes, but I'm sure it was only seconds. And I thought to myself, well, if you're here for good, you can stay. If not, if you're here for no goodness, go now. And immediately the faces disappeared. The other story, my husband was in the Pacific, and he was fighting the Japanese. And there was a young Marine that came back across the no man's land, and the Japanese were shooting everything they had, and when he got to the other to their lines, he was riddled with bullet holes from his waist down. His legs were, all his bones in his legs were shattered. And whenever the chaplain asked how he got there, he only replied, "My father brought me back. My father brought me back." And whenever it come to find out, I think the Yank magazine wrote it up in the fact that the chaplain found out that the father had died in the Battle of Aragon or some other battle. The third one was a couple years ago here at my home. We had these footsteps constantly, maybe 2 or 3 times a month out across the patio and wooden deck. And my husband was out in the workshop working one day, and each time we'd hear these footsteps, we'd check them out, there would be nothing there. And this particular night he was working out in the workshop, and he thought I'd called him, and I says no. And he went on back to what he was doing, and suddenly a hammer flew across the workshop and just missed him by fractions, and there wasn't a soul nowhere.
Wow.
And we have no idea how the hammer or who threw the hammer, but it went across the shop nevertheless.
Unmistakable message, nevertheless.
Nevertheless.
Thank you very much for your call.
Mm-hmm.
And adding to our list of incredible stories this morning. Some of these have been truly incredible. And I'm going to have to sit down and listen to a tape of this program myself. We'll be right back. First-time caller line, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Hi, where are you, ma'am?
Spokane, Washington.
Spokane.
This is back in the 50s. Oh, gosh, wait till I turn this darn heater down. I'll be right back.
Oh, that's quite all right. Go ahead. We have no open lines right now. When we do, you know the numbers. Pick one and call it.
Hold up here.
Yes.
Back in the 50s, my husband and I had, he was a hard rock miner up here in Washington State, and I had gone down to California, and I tried to talk him into coming down there and get a job in the shipyard, which he used to work in, and got that all arranged. And I had just a one little apartment, and I went and got had a lease option to buy on a place, and I transferred my mail over to a little mailing thing. Well, he called me up and said he would be down in a couple of days. So I was busy from one place to the other and so forth. I'm driving down Vermont Avenue, and I look in the rearview mirror, and there he is in a black sedan with another guy driving, and he smiled and waved at me. And I thought, oh, that son of a gun, he got here 2 days early. I drove around home and got everything ready, made a pot of coffee and everything. He didn't show up, and I had to go over to the other house. I left a note on the door, went over, took care of the apartment that I was going to rent with option to buy, and so forth. It was a duplex.
Right.
It paid for itself and everything because the beauty operator was in the other half. And I was real proud of that. Went back home, didn't hear anything. About 4 days later, I got a letter in this little mail office. The girl called me and said, you got a letter from a poem, and I went over, picked it up, and he had written to me. And a couple of days later, I got a telegram that he had been killed the day after I saw him in the car.
Oh, gee.
I have never remarried. It was such a blow. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, he was killed, and he had sold the house, he had sold our furniture, he had packed up things to ship and everything, and he was killed the day before he was supposed to work one shift and leave, and the next morning, and he was killed.
And so as a result, you have never remarried?
No, it was too much.
I understand, and I really appreciate your taking the trouble to call us.
Thank you.
Take care. Line 3, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Hello.
Are you there?
I'm here.
I just wanted to say, I had an incident happen about 4 years ago. I went to my mother's house, and my mother has her grandmother, at the time was her mother, was living with her, and she was approximately about 90 years old, and pretty well bedridden. I mean, she couldn't get out past the kitchen.
Sure.
And we went to dinner. I just happened to stop by and see her, and she said, let's go to dinner, and I said, fine. So before we left, she always keeps the windows locked. We always lock the doors. I mean, that was just one of her pet peeves. And we went to dinner. It was about 20 minutes away from where we were at. And we were at dinner, we were talking, and I never really got to know much about my grandmother. And I had said something about, well, what was my grandfather like? And we talked, and she said he was real mean and vindictive to your grandmother, and that was one of the main reasons why they divorced. And he died, he was an alcoholic, and he passed away, and so many years before this. So, I mean, we went into other conversations, and at the end of the evening, we went back to the house. We came out, went to the back door, and in my mom's bathroom, which is at the other end of the house, there would have been no way my grandmother could have got, because she had a wheelchair to the kitchen. That was as far as she could go, because she was in a trailer house.
Right.
And we got to the back bathroom, and I happened to go in first. And I walked in, and I was just about to shut the door, and just something told me, don't shut the door all the way. I looked up, and on the inside of the door, she had one of those length-away mirrors of the door length.
Oh, yes.
It had been lifted up past the doorway, and then it was like about 2 feet above the doorway, and it had been tightened all, and it had it probably had about 12 or 13 of those latches you screw in and tighten.
Right.
Every one of the latches was completely tight, because I just completely went over this thing. There was no forced entry. There was nobody had a key. The only people that have a key to that house is my mom and my dad. He lived up in Ely. And this chill just ran down my back, because if anybody was to break into the house, I mean, there's been just no godly reason why they would just raise this mirror up and tighten it down like they did. And I told her to come in. I says, were you messing with the mirror earlier this afternoon? She said, no, I never messed with the mirror. And she looked in, and her face just turned white. And, I mean, it was just really weird. And we went in to check on my grandma to make sure she was all right. And she was in the other room. She was just muttering my grandfather's name, just kept muttering. I mean, she never really ever talks about him. And she just kept muttering. I mean, she didn't say, just kept saying his name over and over and over again. And I mean, after that, I mean, I've heard stories and stuff, and I used to be skeptic about it, but never again. I mean, to this day, when we took the mirror off the next day, I mean, she didn't even want the mirror in the house. I took it to the dump and got rid of it. But I mean, that is probably one of the weirdest things I've ever had happen to me, or to her for that matter.
Well, you've told that story on the right morning, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. And I know that a lot of you sitting out there listening to all this morning have got to be going through some changes, because I sure am. These aren't nuts. These people are literate, obviously well-educated, articulate, young, old, middle-aged. That last caller was just another example. How can you ignore it? Good morning. On our first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
Hi, this is John calling from Fairbanks, Alaska.
Hi, John, all the way from Fairbanks.
Yes, I want to know if perhaps you're having some poltergeists in your radio feeds tonight.
I hope not. Why do you ask?
I don't know if any other callers have picked this up. I don't know if it's in one of your network feeds or what, but periodically, starting with your first hour through your second, third hour, every so often I'd hear a background noise. It sounded like a duck quacking. I mean,
come on.
Now I'm recording your program, and there are quacking ducks or poltergeist or something on your program. I'm sure other listeners.
Do you have the tape there?
I have the tape going right now.
Look. Oh, well, you have it going now to record your own call.
Exactly. I turned everything way down, but hopefully I can still record it. But periodically.
All right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to terminate this conversation with you now.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want you to do is cue your recorder to where you've got that on tape.
Okay.
And call me back and play it.
Okay.
Will you do that?
Tonight?
Tonight.
Okay, I'll try because it's been probably an hour since I've heard it, but I'll try to get it for you.
If you can do it, call me back on the same line.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, I'll try to do that because I wanted to share a couple stories with you.
Well, if you want to do... All right, fine. Go ahead and share. You've got time to share one now. Go ahead.
I'll try to do that, but when I went to school, I went to school with this boy, and he had a pretty rough life. He lost one brother in the 8th grade due to some childhood illness, and then a brother that was a couple years older than him went to Vietnam. And he was killed when he was a gunner on board a helicopter, and he was killed in action in Vietnam. And he led a fairly unhappy life, and we parted ways, and I joined the Air Force, and I ended up in Alaska, and I was stationed at Eielson Air Force Base, and one night he came to me in a dream, and he was very sad in the dream, and he was crying. And he expressed to me in the dream that he'd been hurt badly, and he just had a car wreck. And I just thought it was a dream. And a few days later, I received a letter from my mom and a newspaper clipping that he'd been killed in a car wreck.
Oh, boy. All right.
And it was more than a coincidence.
I understand. All right. Look, let's hold it here. Call me back with that tape. Line 3, you're on the air.
Yeah, actually, I have a ghost story that I'm still trying to resolve now. I'm trying to find out who the ghost is. However, it's kind of a mundane ghost story.
You mean this is going on now?
Yeah, where I work.
All right.
It's real mundane. He just walks through the place and doesn't bother anyone. But when I lived in Santa Barbara, my father was a pastor of a church. And he was a part-time pastor. A small church, couldn't afford to pay him. Part of his compensation was we lived in some apartments in the second story of the church.
Mm-hmm.
This building was built at the late 19th century. So when we were living there, maybe had 90 years on it.
Sure.
Very old, very oppressive building. Everyone I know who lived there was terrified, I mean literally terrified, to go downstairs when it was dark. And, it was my job, for instance, to go turn on the lights in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday morning, I had to go turn. My dad, many years later, said, well, I didn't want your sisters doing that. Why do I have to?
Well, right. Lucky you.
Yeah, well, I swear, we go down in the dark, and there was something there. There was something there. I knew it. I found out I'm not the only one who felt that way. There were some people we knew who lived there after we did. Everyone in that family refused to go downstairs when it was dark. Anytime somebody went down there, they knew something was there. Well, we later found out someone had committed suicide in that church.
Yeah, there you go.
Many years earlier, someone committed suicide in that church. One of the people who lived there, when he was a member of the church, he lived there the same time we did. Mm-hmm. Very nice guy. It turned out, this happened just a few years ago, this man murdered he just flipped out and he murdered his mother and his father. And he'd lived in that church for years. I don't know if it's connected, but he had flipped out. He murdered his mother and his father.
It absolutely wouldn't surprise me.
It made the news here in town.
And this happened a couple years ago in Santa Barbara. He knifed his mother and father. The church was sold. A military prep school bought it and had a bunch of cadets living there and going to school there.
Right.
Some of those cadets got it in their mind to go down and kill a homeless person. The military academy got closed down because their cadets had committed murder. I went back a couple years ago and with a friend who also used to live there, we went to the place because she still lives in Santa Barbara. She goes, well, it's a coffee house now.
Now, that's not just something you get on your mind.
Yeah, exactly. And we went to the coffee house, and now the coffee house was an occult theme. And you go in, and what I felt when I went in there by myself, and just in all the paintings on the wall, all the decorations was there. We talked to a man whose studio was upstairs in what used to be our apartments.
Yes.
He said he would not stay there at night. At night, when it got dark, he went home.
Whatever it was.
That building was not a pleasant place.
I've got you, sir. Thank you very much for the call. I've sure got you. I'll tell you, that really does seem to go on. It does seem to stay within buildings, structures, where things have occurred. Though on other occasions, spirits, ghosts, if you want, have followed people. Not let them go. When they're part of it, they seem to get followed. Line 1, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Art. I got a strange story. I used to live in Taiwan.
Oh, yes.
And a friend and I had were moving into an apartment. And the apartment had one bedroom, and there was two of us. So we had them put in a wood partition in the middle. And one night we had come home kind of late, and we had getting ready to go to sleep. And he was in his bed, I was in my bed, and we heard these noises, these strange noises, like somebody was throwing BBs on a like a refrigerator, you know, a metallic sound.
Sure.
And
I can imagine BBs on a fridge.
Anyway, I said, you know, cut it out, and he kept telling me to cut it out. You know, we were blaming each other.
Right.
So I didn't think anything of it, and all of a sudden I kind of see my friend, and he's sneaking around this wood partition. You know, the lights are out.
Yes.
And I'm trying not to laugh because, you know, I'm kind of hiding under the covers, and I see him coming around here, and I'm saying, well, as soon as he gets to the bed, I'm going to really scare this guy because he doesn't even know I'm looking at him. And so he gets to the bed, and I throw up the covers, and I, you know, scream at him. And I hear my friend in his bed say, you know, Tony, cut it out. And I tell you, I just broke out into like a cold sweat. And I laid back on the bed, and the bed started to, like it was on the ocean, it just started to move.
This was, you know.
And, you know, I told him, I says, hey, turn on the lights, you know, and he heard the way I was saying it, and he turned on the lights, and I had him check the front door and the windows. And there was nobody there. And needless to say, you know, I had like friends stay over like the next week or so. I was sleeping there.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And you say the bed moved like ocean waves.
Like I was on the ocean. Just the whole bed was just like floating.
Yeah, that bothers me.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine.
Well, my story is, my son used to come in. He was 19 years old, and he used to pick roses all the time for me.
Right.
So one day he said that he was going to go out of state, and I didn't agree. He says, let me go. He says, I have a premonition that I don't have a long lifespan. I says, don't be silly. If it's anybody that's going to go first, it'll be me. He says, promise me if anything happens to me, he says, you'll send me roses. I says, oh yeah, and send me lilacs.
Right.
So a year later, he got in a car accident, and he passed away. Christmas. We lived in an old farmhouse over 100 years old. The doorbell was not connected, and the doors were jammed. The one door is never open. 2 days after he died, the doorbell rang, and the doors flew open, and you could smell roses.
Oh.
You'd come back to say goodbye.
Oh. And you smelled roses.
Yeah, the smell of roses. And we were just...
How did you react emotionally when that happened?
I had a very good feeling because he came back to say goodbye to me. And I knew that there was something. that there was something, because he was only 20 years old when he passed away.
There is something, ma'am.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the story. A lot of stories like that, variations of it. People who have left didn't get finished with their business before they had to go. Good morning. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Art, this is John calling you back from Fairbanks.
Hi, John. Oh, yes, John.
I've edited the tapes. Now, I'm going to try to let you hear this duck quacking, and this was just a few minutes ago when you were talking to the young gentleman just before you took your station break.
Yes.
Now, if this doesn't come across from this portable tape player, I will make copies and send them to you and let you pick it up yourself.
All right, let's hear it.
Here goes. This is just from about 10 minutes ago. We'll see how this comes across the network. Here it goes.
Oh, I said, hey, turn on the lights, and he heard the way I was saying it, and he turned on the lights, and I had him check the front door and the windows, and there was nobody there. And needless to say, I had like friends stay over for the next week or so.
I absolutely heard it.
Hear that?
I heard it.
That's been on your program all evening long, sporadically, that duck quacking noise.
Well, I wonder if people at other affiliates have heard that.
I figured some other caller would identify it to you because I've heard it from the beginning of your show.
All right, it was clearly there. Either we have a board operator in Fairbanks who has a sense of humor, or from a source that no doubt you suspect.
It'd be interesting to know, but I've been hearing it from your hour one on through.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the call back, and I heard it quite clearly. That was in Fairbanks. Well, what about some of you at other affiliates? Did you hear any such thing? I assure you I did nothing like that here. Nothing. You're on the air.
Good morning, Art.
Oh, good morning.
Yes, I wanted to say when I was a teenager, I was sleeping away, and in this dream, I was holding up my casket. So I was screaming, and my mother come running in, and she said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I'm holding up a casket." And she said, "Who's in it?" And I said, "Your brother." So in 2 days, she got the call. He had died.
Oh, how did she, when you told her that in the first place?
I'd seen his face in the casket.
How did she react to that when you told her?
She was more or less a psychic herself, and she believed it. He had a sunstroke. And then another time my dad we lived on the farm, and he had to go to another city in the same state, not far away. And his sister wasn't expected to live. So we didn't have a phone, so a friend had come over and told him that his sister was sick. So he went, and sure enough, about 4 days later, in the middle of the night, the clock, we had a clock that struck the hour.
Sure.
And sure enough, the clock usually went bong, bong. This time it went bong, bong. So my mother said, "Hey, she just died." And she did.
Well, your mother had the power then.
Yes, the clock really told us that she had died.
Thank you. Have a good morning. Coincidence? Maybe. All of these stories, coincidence? Not likely. What do you conclude? Wildcard line 3, you're on the air.
Oh, this is a true story. This is Pat Fitzpatrick from Silver Springs, Nevada. This is a true story about an Irish and a British ghost, and about whom a poem was written by William Butler Yeats called "The Ghost of Roger Casement." In it, Casement was executed by the British, and the Irish government, since they became independent, wanted his body. Every year they'd ask for his body, and finally they got the body back 30 years later when a Labour government came to power. But one of Casement's last wishes was, "Do not let my body rest in this place," which is England.
Yes.
So Butler wrote the poem. He said, "I can't sleep at night. I hear a knocking on my door. I just cannot sleep. And finally, at the end of it, he says, it's the ghost of Roger Casement knocking on my door. And then the British guy, and of course that poem, it was published by Yeats just when Ireland was about to go in on the British side in the Second World War. And because the British government had refused to give the body back, the Irish government stayed neutral.
That's quite a story.
Yeah, William Butler Yeats, the ghost of Roger Casement.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye.
Have a good morning, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Line 3, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to relate a story that goes back to 1968. I was drafted, sent to Nam because of the tremendous turnover of people and whatnot. Well, I was in the infantry. We were stationed in a small fire base close to the Cambodian border.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an evening where it was our turn to go out and set up an ambush. We set it all up. We had everything laid out so that if Charlie came walking along, we could do our thing.
Sure.
And one guy was awake. The rest of us were asleep. That gentleman woke us all up. There was 6 of us, and we all saw a small party of Vietnamese coming at us. They were armed and whatnot, and at the appropriate time we sprung the ambush and whatnot, and nothing happened. I mean, they just kept right on walking through it, not even looking at us. Like,
incredible.
It was the most crazy thing that happened over there while I was there.
Imagine everybody check their ammunition.
Well, you know, when you let go of the claymore, you know something goes.
Absolutely.
And it was the most. I mean, the country itself is a spiritual country, but then to have that happen, and I've never seen.
You know, I don't know.
Any of the other gentlemen.
I don't know if it's that
with us.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that surprising, sir. People who die violent deaths tend to linger, and there are a lot of violent deaths in war.
I've never experienced anything like it, and I doubt if I ever will. But it was, and I've never told anybody about it.
Big effect on your life?
Well, without a doubt. Without a doubt, the whole thing was a big effect on my life.
Well, I'm honored that you chose this moment to tell the story.
It was a good time. Thank you.
Thank
you for letting me say it.
Thank you. Have a good morning. Do you believe him? Did he sound crazy to you, affected? Oh, I suppose you might say that with the strain of war, combat, things like that might happen. Might be a mass hallucination. Or more likely, not. Good morning. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hello, I'm calling from Mesa, Arizona.
Mesa, welcome to the program.
This takes place on the Navajo Reservation, near the trailhead of Rainbow Bridge, and in the vicinity of Navajo Mountain. My father and I were camping in about 1976, and we were camping in the ruins of the old Rainbow Lodge. It had burned down I don't know how many years ago.
Yes.
And as we were going to sleep after we put the campfire out, we both felt a presence of some sort. Didn't see anything. It was something we both felt. The most notable thing is that my father's a preacher, a Free Methodist preacher, and he also has a master's degree in archaeology, or anthropology, I should say. And he felt it too. I know he did, because he said he wanted to offer a prayer, and he prayed something about having a shepherd, watch the sheep.
Sure.
And well, it I guess eventually disappeared because we both went to sleep and didn't really talk much about it after that. And that was that's the only thing I've ever happened close to that. Close to anything ghostly.
But it was enough that you knew that it was something.
It was there. There was a definite apprehension, a feeling of apprehension in the air. And I'm sure that people who have lived out on the reservation or visited or been in the sacred parts, which is, I guess, Navajo Mountain is part of the sacred area, have stories like this. And I'd be interested to hear from them, too.
Maybe you will. Thank you for the call.
Gotcha.
Right. A presence, felt, distinctly felt. Have you ever felt that? No question about it. Something's there. Or no question about it. Something cold and not particularly welcome is in your area. It's not a trivial emotion. It's overwhelming. It comes in waves. Have you ever felt it? Line 1, you're on the air.
Good morning, Art. The fellow from Fairbanks is exactly right. I've been jiggling my radio, wondering what's wrong with it tonight. Usually.
Where are you?
Anchorage, KANI. You come in usually as clear as a bell. Tonight it's been glitches and pops and strange.
Really?
Strange. I have a story about witchcraft in the Arctic and immortality.
All right.
1961, I was visiting an old Eskimo friend in Teller, which is up on the Seward Peninsula, hop, skip, and a jump across from Siberia.
Yes, sir.
Here, the Arctic Circle, a beautiful day, and this old man, William McQuillock, tribe historian for that Mary Igloo tribe, quite a famous Eskimo and a young man. Well, he took a skiff, went about 30 miles out of Teller to snipe for gold up a little creek at an abandoned gold mine. I was walking along the creek, and I saw something I couldn't believe. A track of a human footprint, left foot, barefoot, in the sand. The creek had just dropped, and this was very, very fresh, and I couldn't believe it. My foot was exactly 12 inches long. This was 4 inches longer than mine. One human footprint in a place where you had to walk carefully or you'd cut your rubber boots on the sharp rocks, a lot of quartz there. I called William and his cousin over. What is this? He took one look, turned, and started walking away, both of them. About a mile back down to the skiff, and I couldn't figure out what's wrong with him. He acted afraid. I went down, and after a lot of persuasion, he told me a story of the most famous shaman. At the turn of the century, there was a huge Eskimo, nearly 7 feet tall, he said, a huge man, who traveled amongst the villages. Strangely, he'd show up 150 miles away in one day. He preached to the people. He healed the sick. He even raised the dead, William told me. A young boy had died, and he put a tent over the grave, crawled in, a big noise, a roaring sound, and he walked out with the boy. This is a famous shaman. Turn of the century, the Great Nome Gold Rush. The Army came to try to keep order. They had a law that no witchcraft could be practiced. Well, this huge shaman showed up outside of Nome, and a troop of soldiers went out with a captain to arrest him because he was preaching revolt and warning the people, the Eskimo, against the coming white man. He said, "You cannot do anything to me. I have powers greater than you." And he had a man take a spear and stabbed him to prove it. Spit on his hands, rubbed his side, and there was no scar. And the captain almost went nuts, but he arrested him. They put him on a boat to take the shaman to Seattle for trial, and a storm immediately came up and was about to sink the boat. And they looked, and the shaman, instead of being in the brig, was sitting on the stern looking back at the land. So they put him back in the brig. A few minutes later, he was back on the deck. The captain went berserk, and the sailors turned the boat around and put the shaman back ashore near Nome. And
I'm
William
sure
told me, now you know about the track. He is still here. 61.
Oh, that's a great story. Those are great stories. Thank you for the call.
Good evening.
You take care. Yeah, sailors, sailors particularly, wouldn't sail under those conditions. And you know that goes for sailors today too. It hasn't changed. You don't venture out to sea with that sort of thing around you. You don't do it. You just don't do it today or then. Good morning. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Mark again from KNZR in Bakersfield.
Hi, Mark.
I just wanted to say real quick, we haven't heard any quacking ducks, but we've had a similar experience before about a month ago during your show.
What did you hear?
And some ladies had called up during business hours and said they kept hearing someone saying they were going to kill them way in the background.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe somebody along the line is
Well, you never know, of course, Mark, as you well know, you would have the power there to make something...
Yeah, they thought one of us was doing it or something.
I see. Well, I appreciate the information. I find it a little unsettling, though.
Yeah, okay, just want to let you know.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. That's a board operator there in Bakersfield. Well, that unsettles me a little. Line 2, you're on the air.
How you doing, Art?
Okay.
I got a story about my uncle who died about 3 years ago. He died about 2 o'clock in the morning. So we all go to the hospital and, you know, condole my aunt. And then it was, you know, getting pretty early in the morning, so we all went home for a few hours. And then we came back. And as we all come back in the morning to her house, there's this dog that has just parked itself outside the front of the house. And every time somebody got out of the car who was part of the immediate family, the dog came up to them, sat there until you petted it, and then walked away. And as soon as the whole immediate family who was there, you know, came to the house, the dog went away, and we never saw the dog again.
What do you have any idea what dog this was, or?
It looked like a little terrier or something.
Well, not what kind, but whose or why it did what it did? Any idea?
I don't know, but it was just a little tiny dog that was so full of life, and I mean, my uncle was the same way. Here was a guy who was just so full of life, and it was just strange. It waited to greet everyone that came to the house, and after everyone got there, the dog was gone. We never saw it again.
Boy, that's really something.
Really weird story. I don't know what it was, but it's weird.
I thank you for the call.
You're welcome.
You take care.